So when you lift your heel, how far up should the support go? Well, ideally, it should go all the way up to the top. Now, most of us don't do this. Most of us, when we're walking, simply go forward. And as we pick up our heel, this upward direction is not so clear. The forward direction we take care of pretty good. But most of the injuries and the aches and pains that people suffer with have something to do with not finding a clarity in the way that the force travels up through them, all the way to the crown of the head. And so when you practice slowly, you can really see and check and clarify how this works for you. So in the last couple of videos, we've talked about practices of lifting the heels, just in working in standing. But now you can stagger the feet a little bit, one behind the other, and just slowly lift the heel. And you'll see, does the heel lift actually bring your head not just a little forward, but actually to a slightly higher point? Yeah? Now I know this is different than walking, because in walking you're moving at a fair clip, but this is practice for walking. Again, you're trying to clarify, does it travel upward as clearly as it takes you forward? Now most of us, if you take the time to do it, you'll see you're very familiar with something like this. Now that was a lift of the heel that didn't really travel upward at all. It just brought my knee forward. It didn't really move my torso forward. It didn't lift my spine or my head. It just sort of collapsed under me. And when you're moving with a fair amount of momentum, it does the trick. But when you're going slowly, you can actually see that as soon as the leg kind of breaks like that underneath you, it no longer really does work. You're actually abandoning the support of the leg in that moment. So how can you feel your head more clearly than usual? It's very simple. You take your hands, you place them on either side of your head. Your fingers are actually going to be pointing upward, which is the direction you're trying to clarify. And you can arrange your hands so that the thumbs are just a little bit behind the ear, and the index finger and the rest of the fingers are a little bit in front of the ear, and your elbows point forward. So not out here, because that'll tend to collapse your neck and your upper back. Have the elbows pointing forward a little bit so that you feel that the uppermost part of your chest starts to actually lift a little bit. So you get the hands in this position. And again, you stagger the feet a little bit. Have the back heel rest comfortably on the ground for a moment. Have the front knee not straight. Have it softly bent so the knee stands over the foot. And just slowly lift the back heel. Now I actually advise the first few times you do it is don't try to do it well. Just lift the back heel in the way that feels most convenient. Yeah? You just lift. And with your hands on your head and looking at the horizon, you can see how the lift of the heel doesn't really travel up and support your head. After you've gotten familiar with that, go ahead and encourage your head. Use your hands to gently lift it up, basically at the same rate that your heel lifts. And then as the heel goes back down, you can let the head and the spine follow the heel down until you have this nice kind of parity. The head lifts, the spine lifts as much as the heel lifts. And part of what you'll start to experience is a rebalancing of the effort you make to lift the heel. In the beginning, most of the effort will probably be experienced in the leg. But you can actually play little games with yourself. You can imagine yourself using your hands to actually, and you don't want to do this powerfully, it's just playfully. Imagine you're actually lifting your head higher and higher until the only way it's going to go higher is if the heel lifts a little bit and your leg gets longer. Because of course, when you lift the heel, the point of contact to the ground up to the hip joint, that distance actually gets longer than it is when the heel's down. But you can actually pretend to lift your heel by leading from your head. Whoop. Now, for the most part, you're going to discover that this is not terribly difficult to find. But a few things will tend to creep in as you do it. One is that in lifting the head, you'll tend to do something like this. That will be some version of lifting your head. And you're right, that is lifting the head. But this is really lifting the front of the head, and you can see the back of the head actually compresses down. Some people, to avoid this, will then start to pull their chin in a lot. But the reason your hands are shaped around your ear like this is because this is where the spine actually enters the skull. It comes in just behind the back of the ear. And so your hands are there not just to help you feel the head move, but to actually give you a chance to guide the movement of the spine. So it's not a movement of the head articulating at the top, but really a sense that the spine is driving forward and up from the support of the movement of the heel. So there's a couple of tricks to help you clarify this relationship. One is to imagine, instead of just having to lift the crown of your head or feeling like you're going to have to lift your chin, instead picture inside your mouth. Picture the roof of your mouth. In fact, maybe even the soft palate, which is way back somewhere behind here, way back there near the top of the throat. Yeah? And so picture that this is the place that's really being elevated by the heel. Yeah? Once you get that clarified, once you feel like the roof of the mouth is actually expanding upward, you have that kind of internal sense of buoyancy, then you can play with placing your foot a little bit farther away and finding the trajectory from the foot there. As if you were here, you're taking a much longer stride. Yeah? Or you can do it taking a much shorter stride, or even a much shorter stride. You'll notice that it's not just the work of the back leg. As you change the distance that the foot stands behind the front foot, you notice that the front foot actually plays a role too in how you support the spine lengthening up. And eventually, you can make the movement a little more oscillatory, and you can figure out how to come all the way up onto just one leg and go back and bounce and bounce and bounce gently. For the most part, you'll find that it's easier for you to find the connection at certain points through the stride as you practice like this. And the point is to find an even quality of connection all the way through. The whole point is that by the end, you want to feel as if the head is supported on a higher point of the spine than when you started, so that when you take your hands away from your head, you don't do something like this. That's not what you want to do. Instead, after your little few minutes of practice, you actually want to feel, okay, you find the connection through your heel, you're lifting your head up, you're starting to feel light, you come back and you stand. That when it's time to take the hands away, there's this very important moment where as the hands come away, the head remains supported at this higher place. And then you can get on the train. Thanks.